Welcome everybody to SUSE QE Tools workshop. This is the start of a month again. So the topic of today will be the SUSE QE Tools roadmap. So let me show you here. We have tools roadmap for April, and for that, something that you can find from our wiki page on the project QA of Progress of SUSE or tools, how we work. There you will find the link, so it's nothing secret. Everything can be found here. I will start with the stories that we have closed within the last period. And let me adjust that because, oops, sorry. Wait, I'm lost. Yeah, less than 30 days. Oh, I think I messed up the very, but this one is fine now. So we are looking back 30 days, which is roughly the period since we had the last roadmap session. I didn't properly calculate now, sorry about that. And what we have seen is that we have 59 tickets. So, you know, just the usual average speed. We are still holding that, roughly 2 tickets per day. And of that, we have let's go from the bottom. We had 3 support tickets. So support tickets are the one where we start with trying to help you guys as users with some questions or some problems. And then we don't really find any improvement that we need to do in the documentation of product. And, you know, it really just stays a support ticket. Then the user is okay with our solution. And then we continue. We had organizational, that's how we describe ourselves, how to take production workers' answers for testing backend changes. We had 2 infrastructure tickets. So infrastructure tickets that show up here are actually of category infrastructure within the Opengl tests repository, because we have also the Opengl infrastructure project, which show up with no category. I will come to these later. So certainly there were quite some problems in the last period, which we worked on. And some are tickets which will only show up next period because maybe the root problem of network performance problems is resolved, but we want to go on and, you know, try to add some more improvements, try to add more monitoring. This is why not all stories show up as resolved yet. But one was that we did see quite some performance issues on some 390 workers and also other machines. And there was also a problem on one Power VM machine where it actually was disk errors and there was a disk replacement done, and then the tests improved. Feature requests. So we have 11 feature request tickets, meaning OpenQA features. So for example, we have, well, it's kind of interesting for OpenQA developers themselves. So what we have is that normally in an OpenQA test, of course, we have a video, which is a nice feature. Here, when we say in CI, meaning like the tests of OpenQA itself, we also have a full stack test there, and we now save the very same video that we record in all OpenQA tests, we also record in that full stack test of OpenQA itself. We have better handling of minion tasks. We have rephrased the labels on the admin, the worker admin page in the OpenQA web UI. We have monitoring for worker-specific bandwidth. So, you know, maybe sometimes there are problems, and this happened here as well, that the bandwidth of getting assets to an OpenQA worker is awfully slow. And what we have included is a bit of more information in OpenQA logs itself. So, you know, it shows you the download speed in the log files. And we use the very same value in monitoring so that we monitor the bandwidth performance from each worker. So let me show you how that looks like in Grafana. So here we see the download rate over the last 7 days, and you see that we have an alerting limit. And you can see how the download rate is roughly at around 50 megabits per second, which is fine. But then if it reduces further, I think it's maybe bytes per second. If it reduces further, and if our maximum is somehow limited, that we just have a very limited download speed, then we would see that. So these two stories are actually. Then Anton, yeah.
On the graph, I see 3 or 4 places where download rate was going basically to 0, right?
Yes.
What?
It's
all about?
So yes, it could be, let's say, some kind of calculation artifact, because the download rate, how the calculation calculated, it also depends on the size of the asset. Like, if you have a bigger asset, then likely the download rate is a bit higher. If you have a smaller one, then there's more overhead. Doesn't account for it. Why it actually goes down to an actual 0, we don't know. But the alerting is only, if that really continues for some hours. So, we have to be honest. If a download speed is limited for an hour, I guess nobody would do anything except for wait. And this is what we do here. But, the problems that we had were like over days or weeks, the download rate was low. And what we have now is an alerting period, which is in the range of 2 or 4 hours. Okay, so yeah, we would average out over such cases. This is like a single data point. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Right. Then we had a visual graphical change. So the needle editor had some weird black surrounding, and it wasn't clear, like, is that part of the screenshot? Is it part of the web UI? And what's that about? And then in the end, we managed to fix that. So this is the before, and that's the after, and now it's, wait, I think it's not actually oh yeah, here we could visualize with red where it comes from, so it's not like in the video, and then we managed to completely get rid of that. Then optimize the API v1 jobs. Let's take a look into there, because then I think we see the numbers. So previously, and it's still the case, if you call APv1 jobs without any argument, please don't do that now, then before it took already 10 minutes or would never conclude, and now it's 2.5 minutes. So this is like the most extreme case. Of course, normally if you give it parameters, then you would filter and limit, and you would get a response much faster. For example, now we have a response well within 1 second, wherein before it was like multiple cases which were of higher numbers. So the help text of Opengl client config was extended. We see that still many people manually supply API key and secret as command line parameters, and then often the problem happens that people put that into a public ticket, so you leak your personal API key and secret. That shouldn't happen, and this is why we want to stress you can put that in a config file, and that config file path can also be configured so it could be passed around. The undocumented test variables in backends are better prevented in OS audience, meaning that in OS audience there are a lot of interesting perimeters. And previously, some were kind of hidden in the backend. So that was now reworked and changed. And also we have a check so that it doesn't happen again that anybody introduces a variable in the backend which has no documentation and nobody would know what this is for. And Then let's go to bugs that we worked on. So yeah, you can see here in urgent big color a problem of some encountered objects allow blasts. I would say that was a regression, if I remember. Then we found some other cases like this and this, where based on exotic uses of the query or the API, one would run into, you know, some kind of Perl warning. So we prevented that. We worked on some instabilities which we have observed in unit tests, and when we see that in unit tests on that level, it's always the high probability that this would also happen in production cases. It's just like very hard to pinpoint. So luckily we do have these failures in unit tests, and even more luckily we are actually able to, you know, find a fix to them. So I'm glad about that. Yeah, we had job details page fails to load. Remember the optimize API v1 jobs route, but that one is related because, you know, it was found in certain job combinations trying to load the page, it actually doesn't load. And then in the background, we found the problematic calls to a database query. So this was optimized, fixed, prevented, and such. What others I would like to highlight? Yeah, maybe that one. You know, Opengl has this retry feature since a couple of weeks or months now. And actually, it could happen, or it did happen, that if you put that retry setting there, that even past jobs are re-triggered. So normally it's intended, of course, to only re-trigger failed jobs. It did happen that past jobs were also re-triggered, but that was fixed, and now, you know, it should behave how one would expect it in both cases of failed jobs as well as possible. So that's based on a user report, and, you know, we haven't seen that. So it's nice to see the feedback, which is that people now actually start to use. Okay, that's a minor thing. And then in blank, let me switch to takeaway string project group. Now we have mainly talked about the Opengl project. Tickets. What I want to mention is that we had 17 Opengl infrastructure tickets, and of course, many of them with urgent or high priority. So this is the daily reactive work that we need to accommodate. You know, we have some nice plan, but there's a certain portion, and the portion was certainly higher in the last weeks, to focus on responsive work. And yes, there was quite some problem about performance in the network, and more to that will also come in the next reporting period. One which is as low, but still I would like to mention, like, one consequence and one outcome of the problems that we did hit and that we needed to work on, is that we had network problems, and the network problems are getting deeper and deeper. And most of us in the tools team are software developers, and we are interested in developing software and providing that to you and the users. But there's some tasks where we need to care about the infrastructure. And that includes now that it really makes sense that we learn about switch administration and get access, so that people from our team, from SUSE tools, have access to the switches which are in the SUSE Nuremberg data center, and that we know what to configure there, and that we know what to monitor there, how to debug problems and investigate connectivity issues. So at first it was like And yeah, and in most cases it was like the connection was there, but it didn't show the expected performance. Remember the bandwidth graphs which I showed you, this is also related, we saw that there is a connection, but it's so slow that OpenQA tests are not able to do their job as they're expected. So this is why we need to dive into that topic. And the QA project, so these are things which are not necessarily directly related to OpenQA. We have, we had, this is phrased like we had a problem that no aggregate maintenance run were scheduled in on a certain day, and then it turned out where the problem was introduced that was fixed. But also just yesterday we had a really nice and productive 5-wise what happened analysis session, and we identified a lot of good and helpful points how we can improve mostly bot-ng, the central component of scheduling the maintenance tests and then doing this auto approval. Then this is related to OpenQA review. So that OpenQA review is a separate tool which provides these nice reports, look like this. And the secondary feature which OpenQA review does provide is that whenever there are jobs that continue to fail and some progress ticket which are related to that, actually let's check that instance. Yeah, you see this automatic reminder message, right? You see that? And in this example, I don't expect any further reminder comments. So you see that the last one was already last year. But in cases of current tests and current products, and when there are new test failures, meaning like if that link will differ, then there will be new reminder comments, and it will say like, hey guys, in the same scenario there is a new test which still fails, and people have told us that while maybe being annoying, these comments are still useful and we want to have them. But what we changed is that we are not reporting them anymore in a fixed period of 14 days each, but we have an exponential backup. So, if people continue to ignore the comments, I mean, this is what can we do about it? We told them, and decision needs to be made eventually, but we are likely not adding more information. We're just spamming tickets with more reminder comments. So we apply exponential backup, meaning the first reminder comment will be posted. The second one will be posted at not earlier than 14 days after the previous one. And then it will be double the period each. Like, so the next one after that, only 28 days, like a month later. And then the one after that, 56 days, and so on. Right, and then some improvements in cpunk spec and dependency injection. Yeah, Santi?
Yeah. Does that mean that if a test is failing for, I don't know, so has been failing for quite some time, it will still at some point start to get reminders every 9 months, for instance, because
But
the number is growing?
yeah, not every 9 months, but yeah, after when the previous one was like after 4 months, then the next one would be at the earliest 8 months, but only if there's a new job in the same scenario which is actually reproducing the issue. Okay?
So that means that, let's say, a random test is failing in in triple SD,
Yes.
and so it fails today. we got so many reminders that we are at the 4 month at the 4 month mark,
Yeah.
and there are no builds for the next 2 months,
Yes.
and then on the third month there is a new build.
Yeah. Still no
And
reminder.
still no reminder.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then it will wait until at the earliest 9 months afterwards.
So if at the 9 months there is no job, there
If,
will,
for example, if you disable the schedule after 8 months after the latest failure, and you never schedule new tests, then yes, there would be never a reminder message because there's no new information that we from Opengl point of view, we don't know if the issue actually
of course,
reproduced.
of course.
Yeah.
So
Let's say you disable it for a year, and then after a year you enable it again, then the very first failure should again remind because it's
after the
9 months
period.
or later, right?
Okay. So if there are failures in this between 4 to 9 months, if there are failures, there will not be reminders. But for the next time after this period, then there
Yeah.
will be the reminder.
Right, that the very
Okay,
next time. It's not like we would need to hit exactly a failing job on the day 9 months afterwards, and if that suddenly is not there, then we
Okay.
would miss the spot.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Good. Okay, are there other questions or remarks regarding the stuff that was done? Yanis?
I saw, first of all, some tickets you mentioned that it was high priority, but actually you mentioned it was warnings. I just was curious.
You mean one of the tickets which I mentioned?
Yeah,
As,
but yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know which
Another
one.
thing is, you didn't say anything about. I wanted to hear about the widget that you saw on the chat. You didn't say anything about this
A
feature.
widget?
Yeah, from Chris.
Widget.
You implement that you can create outside of the test repo some widget that you can insert.
The OS Audience plugins.
Yes.
Ah, right. So that's actually part of the current work. Okay. So we will come to that. Thank you for the transition to.
Also, one more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is the 107671 related to the x8664 missing jobs?
Which one that was?
107671.
71.
71.
That one?
No. 671.
One,
Should I
six.
type it?
Yeah.
107
6,
7.
6, 7, 1. That one. Is it related to which one?
To to the missing jobs for x8664.
And the idea would be.
There is a ticket with the latest builds don't have 8664 jobs.
Yeah. Please tell me the links afterwards. I can check that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the next work that we are doing. So first, let's start with the top level view, which is the level of the sagas, and then we can go to the specific tasks. So top level views. You know these three old sagas, so they are like an old hat. this is the news story which I'm very happy to report about. So we made a decision which I think is benefiting everybody. What we want to do is we will effectively, we will split our projects into two separate scopes. One we will call LibreQA. This will continue as a big community project. And that means working with the OpenSUSE community. This includes the plugins which had been mentioned. And then we will have OpenQA. That one will be focused on our enterprise work. So we decided to make that step because we think by doing that, we can focus much better on what the specific needs are. So we provide value through speed, flexibility, and security, but work with the community for our customers. Effectively with that, we will also split the team. So we will have a split and we will have LibreQA as a community project, which will be led by Chris. Chris Duvan, if you're still here or the noise connection looks broken.
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay, you're still there. So I will give the word to you for a minute. And then OpenQA, I will continue to lead that with 8 persons in a group, and you, Chris, with another 2, you will lead LibreQA. So, Chris, would you like to lose a word about LibreQA?
Yeah, so you mentioned the new feature, which is going to be called Wheels, which is going to be the main way to extend your test functionality. So they will be used especially in LibreQA, which is where we want the community to be able to add the features um, they need. And as you know, we have many users of OpenQA right now who run the tests for Fedora, for GNOME, for Debian on their own particular hardware for particular corner cases, and there's even many more than that. And yeah, ultimately to make this scale, we need everyone to be able to contribute their parts, and of course ultimately all of that effort will form part of OpenQA. So this is where I would manage the community side of things as the basis or as the glue to pass over to that.
Perfect, awesome. And of course, we will fork the repositories. We can still selectively backport individual features and such, but I think most of the work will be separate anyway. I think it makes much more sense so that we can focus on the quite disparate and different user groups, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Santi, you wanted to say something?
Marita was first.
Okay, she could come afterwards. So, Santi.
Yeah.
Oh, Marita.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay, I was just curious. I have never ever heard about LibreQA and OpenQA. Where was this discussed or agreed, or I don't know. I have not seen an email in OpenSUSE, so I mean,
Yes,
I'm wondering
right. We just
where
came.
was there?
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, we just came up with a plan. So the idea was just brought up, and then afterwards we can follow up with that. But you have to remember, keep in
I'm
mind.
talking about community. I'm talking about the community. Was there a community meeting?
That is the community. We have the community meeting right now.
And now it's okay. Okay, got it. Thank you. Yeah,
but guys, okay, yeah, okay. First, Santi.
Yeah. So I mean, kudos for the idea. Now, my main question is, for instance, from time to time, QE teams have feature requests, and you might remember our feature request for being able to search in the test settings.
Right.
What does this mean for us as a as how to put it, not the community side, but like the enterprise side, that hey, we need to have this feature to be able to do other things as well.
Yes.
Does this kind of bump the priority, or then we can have a more
Yeah,
relaxed discussion to try to?
definitely.
Mhm.
You know, for example, this is how it will work out. We will move or we create a fork of Opengl. We will move that to the internal GitLab instance, and then we can introduce such features. And then it can be faster because we don't need to care about the community impact anymore.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, that's exactly something I was missing, and that's
Good. The
amazing.
next one was, I think, Anton. Anton?
Yeah, so several comments. First of all, I think it would be nice to have somewhere like a clear list of what is responsibility of one team and what is out of scope of this team and what is responsibility of another and what is out of scope of this other team. So we could more clear direct our requests in one or other case. And also regarding a split of, so you plan to fork which repos exactly? All, I mean, like OSL2inst, OpenQA, all repos.
Yeah, definitely OpenQA and OS order inst. And for the other things, I think we can still decide which we actively use. For example, there are some components which are only used within the scope of OpenSUSE and some which are
okay, and do you have like clear understanding what would be relations between these two repos? What would be upstream? How they will be synced? Will be there some clear procedure or
for a start, we will not sync anything. So we'll just separate it, and I think at least for a year or so, we will not have a need to sync or port anything. So we can really focus on the individual user's wishes much better. That make sense?
I mean, I get what you're saying, but yeah, okay. Yeah, it's I don't know.
Okay, maybe I can add one remark to that. Guys, this is an April Fool's Day prank. We are not going to fork projects. I mean, seriously.
Shit.
But
shit.
No, I know that it looks like an April Fool's prank.
You still like the idea?
I like the idea of the enterprise features being able to be risen a bit. Like,
of course.
Yeah, because as soon as I read OpenQA, I knew what you were talking about. So.
Yeah, this was good. This was good.
I thought the names would make it obvious. Okay. Yeah, it's not the first case of an April Fool's prank that turned into a viable idea in the end. So, I created a ticket, and what is written there, I mean, it has a lot of bullshit words, but we can still think about that.
And for what it's worth, though, the part about wheels, that is true. So we will have a way to extend OpenQA much more easily than before, and without adding every single thing to the test distribution.
Right.
But you can also duplicate things, right?
That might happen. That users duplicate implementation with plugins. I think it's unlikely. We don't have that huge community that people would do the same thing.
Like for example, there are already in test some things that, in my mind now, it will be better if they go to these weeks. But is there I'm not sure what's the right approach. What's the right thing to do?
Yeah,
Like,
that's true. So we'll think about that, how to handle plugins and prevent it. But first, I want to make sure that this is understood. So
by the way,
this
we
ticket,
don't have access to this ticket, right?
exactly, because it's a private ticket, because it was a joke, okay? And it doesn't have any content. So, you know, everything what I was talking about and Chris was adding to the joke by just saying what he would do, which isn't true. It was completely exaggerated in some of the things I was trying to phrase them to going way too far with forking a project and such. The main idea maybe is still valid, but you know, this ticket doesn't have any meat or content to it. It was just a joke. Yes, I know, I get it. Sounds nice, and there's some good idea behind that, so that we can. Okay. So now I would like to, Marita, would you like to add there or ask them?
No, but actually, I wanted to ask, which is now obsolete because it's a joke. But anyway, the question is valid for later.
Yep.
Do you do any presentations at the OpenSUSE conference around OpenQ or anything else? Not this one, obviously, but others.
Yes, I will do a presentation of what the SUSE QA tools team is doing. And it actually fits in a bit because, you know, what we are doing is not just Opengl, but tooling around that, and also to describe and introduce a bit like what based on what requirements we work on and for what are the plans and where the ideas come. Okay.
Okay, cool idea. Thanks.
Thank you. Santi?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is the place, but I'm also planning to have at least 1 or 2 sessions in the OpenSUSE conference. Mostly just showcasing things that we have done, like showing the impact.
Cool.
And then maybe a workshop, but that's a different story. But yeah.
Nice, thank you.
But Santi, you're talking about OpenQA and QA, right? Not other tools you have in mind.
QA work in general, right?
Yeah.
Yes, is
Okay.
that.
I mean, everyone here, please feel addressed. You can also talk about other private projects that are related to OpenSUSE and submit something. We still have 2 weeks to go. So if you have, I don't know, a tool you like, you can submit a proposal.
I would like that as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, I can encourage that.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you.
Right, so this will happen. And now the other 3, let's be serious again. Sorry about that, guys. We have to be serious. So the other 3 sagas, you know them. We had the same in the last period, so no change in red if we skip the first one. But of course, we did make some progress within there. And the first one is about multi-machine tests, where the work was done to treat multi-machine tests as really first-class citizens. There already had been some improvements made. For that saga, for example, you're now able to use this syntax to when you clone tests, you can add part of the name to the test's name, and that is available as a freestanding feature. What is actually needed for is and I find that there is a pull request by Marchus, and so was it merged already? That one, let Opengl clone custom git ref spec handle dependencies, meaning that with this tool, this helper tool to use custom git report repositories and such, we can also treat multi-machine tests properly. And we had a problem with the test variable, which tells Opengl which name to use and which name to display. And if you would have two scenarios, something like server client, and you would want to set tests so that, you know, some kind of test jobs don't show up in the same scenario as production ones, and then this wouldn't work. So what this is using now is that one can use the syntax, which is, you can see that here, test plus equal. So you can add a suffix to test, and then the original names, even in the multi-machine cluster like server and client, are preserved, and you just add to that. So this works without, but now it can be used as part of Opengl clone custom git ref spec. And then inside the Opengl investigate scripts, there we that also now I'm confused again. Maybe there is no pull request yet. Okay, but the plan is that for Opengl investigate, we can also treat multi-machine tests as first-class instances, meaning the same as single machine. And by that, then we can have investigation jobs for multi-machine tests triggered automatically as well. The other ideas which we have there is easy triggering of multi-machine tests similar as for single machine tests, and that's already also progressed a bit, so that you can use the jobs post API to trigger some tests there. The idea would be that also from the web UI, we would make it easier to have easier re-triggering of multi-machine tests. So, you know, there's this pull down menu next to the retry button where you can select options how they are done. Then the dependency view also when not looking at latest jobs, so that in multi-machine test scenarios, you every job, even if it has a clone or clones comes before or afterwards. Better feedback in case of problems. That story was already done. And then there is the idea of having a top-level view of result of cluster. So, you know, you might consider the server client in combination as the single test result. So you're not actually interested in individual job results. So the idea is to display that as well as accordingly. The next epic is SUSE maintenance QA workflows. I would say the next pressing story that we would like to work on for that would be I'm sorry, I shouldn't just scroll to that. There's one story which I want to mention in particular is the better notification. So, you know, if you guys want to have a squad specific notification, then we would like to provide that with an email, but the email can also be nicely integrated into Slack, because for every room you can get an email address and then hook that into something like job group settings, and then you would say whenever there's an unreviewed new test failure that needs investigation in a job group, send a message to, you know, a mailing list and or a chat room, depending on what you like to have as a preference. And then the scaling out story, which is now the oldest saga. So the current issue that we work on is the disaster recovery scenario of Opengl SUSE within cloud. Of course, Opengl is running in the cloud, and that had been the case already for long. And it's possible to do that. But, you know, having something like the existing production instance transferred into the cloud gives some additional challenges regarding the external tooling. You know, where would we get the repositories from? Where would we get the information from regarding maintenance tests that we want to test? Where would we feedback that situation? How can we make sure that no sensitive data is leaked to? this is in the scope of disaster recovery, meaning that we don't want to run Opengl SUSE DE completely replaced in the cloud and make us poor, but just that we have a scenario like a playbook, what happens and what we need to follow in case of a disaster. Are there questions around the plan on the level of the sagas? Now then, let me take a look in the complete backlog so that we get an overview there. We have currently 91 tickets, and yes, there are many in feedback and many in blocked, because the last period in particular had been quite busy with some problems that happened, and we tried some fixes and network performance problems where we still need to check, and we need to be sure that we have achieved a better situation again, so we have fixed a regression or a problem, but that we have also prevented a similar situation in the future. So this is currently what we need to carefully check or wait for feedback from users or wait for feedback from our monitoring. What's currently in progress is, well, I just told that, the network performance problems. You know, this is a ticket which is related to many other tickets. So most of them are like reports by you of issues that you have found in the infrastructure. And yes, the likely root cause problem was fixed, which was in the SUSE Nuremberg server room engineering infrastructure area. So there were problems with physical cables on the core switches maintained by engineering infra, and also problems between server room 2 and server room 1. And that had all been found based on Opengl tests. So to put it bluntly, Opengl tests are used now to monitor the network infrastructure within SUSE server rooms. And that had been working so well that we have all reported and forwarded these issues to engineering infrastructure before they could see the issue themselves. And the SUSE office building on the old location had QA labs, which are now not existent anymore. The ticket to organize the labs move is still open, because the move has to be concluded by, making sure that the QA labs also don't exist anymore in reg tables. Santi, wanted to say, or just clap?
It was just a clap.
Thank you. And then that was already mentioned, OS audience plugins. So that's what Chris is working on. And yes, this is a true story. I mean, we actually do that. So what is available now is a proof of concept. And we also asked you for feedback based on that proof of concept, because, it's like across multiple repositories. How does it feel like? How do you think you would be able to use that yourself if you want to create a plugin? And also about the naming ideas. And upcoming work after that would be, so that 5-wise follow-up, I think it should be in progress, because we just did that yesterday, and now we need to record the ideas into according tickets. At monitoring for SUSE QA network infrastructure, then we have this ARM 4 and 5 machines, which are not used in production, and now we found what's the next viable step to do to document relevant differences from the not so well behaving machines versus the one that do behave well. Then some problem reports from internal log files, continuous deployment of all 3 workers. Then that one, error connecting to a host, no route to host. That's also a problem that's fixed by the network infrastructure problem fixing, but what we want to do is improve the connection error handling, because if that happens again, test rivers need to understand better So what does that mean? What should I do? Who should I talk to? We have the request in particular from the UE virtualization team about support of new VMware server, which doesn't have built-in VNC server support. So we need to do a spike solution here. We need to improve the unit test coverage for VNC module. We also would like to have better testing instructions for exotic backends and local SVIRT testing, because when working in these areas, we are likely to introduce regressions again, which we don't want to, and the automatic test coverage was never good. So that's all linked and related. That's the notification about failed and unreviewed jobs, but using Slack, it's working using RabbitMQ and IRC, but now within SUSE, most are using Slack. So this is where we need to find a new solution. And then in new, so that's the fake saga, which I mentioned, and think about if we want to continue with that. And then that one was actually a ticket which we had for longer. And yesterday we found out that, well, we actually have no clue. All the different ideas that we tried don't help. And the errors continue despite the biggest network-related problem fixed in the past weeks. So it's a different problem that we need to look out for. So we put it back to new, and we as a team need to sit together, brainstorm, and see what we can do. And yeah, some problem of QM board and dashboard where old and new incidents are mixed together, sometimes into one. And then there was a request to have customizable Opengl reports based on existing CI pipeline. Now, does anybody see some story here which you say like, yeah, I know about that. It was a request from earlier, but now we don't need that anymore. That would help, because then it would free up our backlog. If you have any questions about tickets which are on the backlog and say like, why is that there? Why is it important to work on? I'm also happy to answer that. You have such questions or notes? Nope, doesn't look like it. Okay. So unfortunately, I cannot ask you for your wishes, like what would you like to see on the backlog, because we just simply don't have the capacity yet. And as long as we can't get rid of some of the issues that we have in the backlog, one way or another, would be hard to accommodate. Santi?
I would like to see more jokes in the future.
More jokes. Okay, we started with one. It's a saga. And of course, you know that a saga is split into epics and user stories. So the individual sub-stories, if they are all being jokes, that could work out for you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So other feedback for this meeting in general, or the roadmap presentation? Is it helpful? Did I lose you? Yeah.
So in general, I really like the roadmap presentation, especially I think it's the first time, or one of the first times, that I joined for this meeting in particular. Maybe one thing that I would, but it requires a bit more of work. I will appreciate is that it's more visual than displaying progress, because it helps to put things into perspective.
Right.
But in general, I'm really glad that how it went, and as a first timer, that's the only thing I can say.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Others? No? Okay, you can still give your feedback afterwards if you would like to stay in the room. I'm creating a poll. helpful. We fell asleep. Was okay. Would be better. So poll is open. You're happy to answer the poll. Stay in the room, chat with us if you like. I'm going to stop the recording here, but I will stay in the room. So thank you all for attending.